Hi.
Hello, everyone there. Welcome to a very special edition. This is not going to be your typical Shadow News. I am joined today by Thomas, who is our lead iOS dev. Now, before I introduce him, I want to talk about the format of the show. So, this show, you'll see that it's not news related. This is a talk show. So, we'll be now inviting special guests every once in a while to talk about specific topics. So, what better way to start this off than talk to our iOS dev right after the WWDC conference by Apple from last week? Thomas, do you want to tell the viewers a bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do at Shadow?
Yeah, hi everyone. Well, it's been like 6 years since I'm working in mobile applications. So I've developed many applications, and 2 years ago I started working at Shadow. So I, as a iOS and tvOS developer, at that time there was like almost no application, just some kind of application on test flight, but so my first task was really to create an iOS app that could get approved to the App Store. And so, yeah, after that, I've mainly worked with the desktop app teams on unifying all the code, and so mobile apps could benefit all the features that are on desktop apps. So yeah, during 2 years it was mostly about unifying code to get Android and iOS apps at the same level at the desktop apps. And well, now we are that this job is almost done, and we are focusing on the user experience and the accessibility of the applications.
And so it wasn't too hard for you to start the iOS app from scratch when you first arrived to Shadow? It didn't take too much work?
Yeah. Well, it was quite a challenge because Shadow is really is a tough subject. You know, you have a lot of different teams, and it's really hard to know when you are doing something wrong, or if it's a bigger problem in Shadow. It it really is difficult, but it was really exciting to start a new app.
Cool. So that is Thomas in a nutshell. So as this is a new format for this show, this stream, I'm going to run you through kind of how this is going to work. So Thomas and I are going to have a discussion about the latest announcements from Apple, and he's going to talk about his vision for the future of the Apple app, of the Shadow apps, and how the announcements last week will impact his development roadmap. After that, we are going to take questions, obviously, from you guys in a Q&A style. And we also will be answering questions from our forum post, which had initially announced this stream. So we'll be doing that throughout the entirety of the discussion segment. Thomas, what are your thoughts in general about the developer conference? And do you watch it every year? Do you watch it closely?
Yeah, of course, I watch it every year. It's really important for iOS developers to watch it because it's where you learn what you will do during next year. You know, they just release the new features, and you will have to implement this feature for your users. And yeah, they during this it's well, for most of the people, it's only one night of a show of Apple, of Tim Cook speaking about whatever he wants, but it's for developers, it's like a full week of videos and labs and many things, many code samples that you can get to to understand how to implement all these new features.
Yeah,
So yeah, you have to watch it every year.
yeah, so it sounds like it's a bit like Christmas for you, right?
Yeah, it's almost that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the news this year, it was, well, it's difficult to say in general because there are so much things interesting for Shadow. So well, I'm just really interested in new Mac and also all the widgets that they are bringing, because maybe we could do something for Shadow out of that. I don't really know, but yeah, all the other information that we learn for Shadow is, it's just amazing for us, and for the iOS users, it will be a huge improvement in the coming months.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to look forward to. And I did want to say one disclaimer is that what Thomas and I are going to talk about, nothing is official. For us, this is just our vision for the future of Shadow on iOS.
Yeah.
And we've read all of these things on press outlets in the news. So this is more of our vision. And some things might not come to reality. Some things might, but right now we're just talking about what we think the future could be like in an ideal world. So let's dive into the main topics. So the first big announcement that we saw at the conference was mouse support. So what can you tell me about mouse support when it comes to iOS for the Shadow app?
Well, it's basically you will be able to do everything you are doing for with desktop apps. So you will have a cursor locked feature, and so you will be able to play FPS game or League of Legends on whatever game needs cursor lock feature. So this is really huge, and you have also they allow you to support all the buttons that are on the mouse. Well, from what I've seen, we will be able to do that, and yeah, so for, I don't know, World of Warcraft users, you can bind all your spells on each button. So this really huge improvement.
Cool. And there's actually two questions from the audience on the forum. One is from Gaijin in regards to mouse support, and he or she is asking, does iOS 14 allow advanced external mouse support such as mouse button 3-X and horizontal scroll wheels?
So for extra button, yeah, I just said I think we will be able to do something. For horizontal scroll wheels, I didn't see anything about that. So I don't think so, but maybe they release something which is basic at the beginning of each release, and every like 2 or 3 months they just add new features. So maybe we will have it, but I don't think so at the beginning.
Okay. And now another question from the forum that we got in regards to mouse support. This one comes from Alia. Is there a timeline for when cursor lock will be rolled out?
Yeah. Well, I've started development on this, but every time I plug my mouse to the iPad crashes and reboots. So, well, sorry, for the moment I can't do anything about development for iOS 14 on mouses, but I think the next beta will be better.
All right, cool. So that's it for mouse support. So the next big topic was trackpad support, which I've seen a lot of people talk about within the community. So what can you tell us about that?
Yes, yeah, Apple released a really nice keyboard with a trackpad integrated in it, and it's really well integrated for the iPad, and well, we will support it for sure. Um, I haven't seen how to implement it yet, but yeah, for sure we will include all the gesture we can and reflect it to the shadow.
Yeah, that was one of the questions actually from the forum, from Gajan and Alia. Will you support the Magic Keyboard fully, including gesture support? So I think you
Yeah, well, I think we can do something about that. Yeah, definitely.
cool. And now the last big topic that you want to speak about was Gamepad support. And I know it's come a long ways where it used to only be MFI compatible, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So
last year was really amazing for us because they announced Xbox and PS4 gamepad support, and I was like, yes, I finally I will be able to play some Assassin's Creed or game like this on my iPad. But this year they went further with new gamepad support, and you can do a lot of things which are really interesting, such as remapping all the buttons. They even support Xbox Elite 2, so they support um, extra button at the rear of the controller. And for the PS4, I've also seen something which is really funny. You can there is RGB LED behind the PS4 controller, and I can just set the color I want. So it's really cool. They went really well on this gamepad support.
cool, cool. So yeah, so those are the big three topics. And so, do you have any idea of the timeline and all this, or is it all still pretty complicated?
Yeah, it's really complicated because it really depends on the beta releases. You know, the first beta there is always bugs, and it's really complicated because sometimes you have crashes and you don't know why. So I think we will have to wait at least one update on the beta or two to be able to fully develop everything. But I will like prepare everything, and once it's working well, I will just release it on test flight.
All right, sounds good. So we do have a couple more questions from the forum, so we can do kind of more of like a rapid fire Q&A
Yeah.
with questions, and then we can open it up to questions on the chat. So this one's from Gadelza, and he or she is asking, did anything change for tvOS this year?
Yeah, we did a huge release in test flight, like I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, and we revamped all the settings of the app, and yeah, now you have like many features that you didn't have, such as display management, extended controller support. Yeah, you have more settings for your shadow, and it's almost like the iOS and iPadOS app.
Okay, cool. And same question is: are there any big blockers or hurdles for you that you're looking forward in the future for Apple TV?
Well, the main problem of the Apple TV is that it's the hardware of the Apple TV. The when I test on Apple TV, the decoding is not really well. There are a lot of stuttering of the image. It's not really fun to play on Apple TV at the moment. And I really hope that in September they will announce a new Apple TV with a new chip. We will be, I guess, more efficient in decoding. And yeah, I hope this will improve the experience on Apple TV.
All right, cool. So it'd almost be like a Shadow Ghost almost.
Yeah, I hope.
So another question from Coquettish Cat. Will the iOS and macOS projects ever be merged? Because Apple is shifting to their own silicone. And will this support natively iOS and iPadOS applications?
Well, so with Silicon, you will be able to run the iOS app on your Mac out of the box. It's just like you will be able to run a Facebook app or everything else. But I don't think iOS and macOS will be merged because there are features that are only available on macOS and that I cannot develop on iOS. For example, USB over IP is not allowed on iOS, so we won't be able to merge it. But at the moment, just so everyone knows, the code of the renderer, the streamer is the exact same as the macOS app. So
Okay.
it's also almost merged, but not fully merged.
All right. This is a good question. So for people who like to draw and who are designers, do you foresee any pencil or scribble support? So being able to identify and recognize the input when you're drawing on a Shadow Windows VM?
Yeah, I think we can definitely do something about that. I think it will be the last, honestly, it will be the last thing I will develop. I will just start for mouse, gamepad, and then I will try a pencil and scribble, yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. So one from Gajan, will we see any local or Bluetooth microphone support?
Yeah, it will be yeah, Bluetooth and local. It's the same for us, and yeah, we will support it. The yeah, I have almost everything ready for that. It's just need some testing, but it will be there soon.
Okay, cool. So now let's take some questions from the chat. As a
Yeah,
reminder,
sure.
everybody, this is Thomas, our iOS developer. So we're going to be taking questions only about Apple, iOS. So think of any questions that you want to ask him about his work, about what he does. I saw there was a question. We can start off the bat, Thomas.
Yeah.
How many people are on the iOS development team currently at Shadow?
Yeah, I can say we are two developers mainly, and but most of our code is shared with all the applications. You know, there is a big part of C++ for if that interests everyone, and yeah, there is many people working on that, and then after just for the launcher part or the UI part, it's mainly my work. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
All right. There's a question from Guillaume FR. Will you port the iPad app on ARM on an ARM Mac?
Well, I think it will work out of the box as they said. I don't think that maybe we'll need just to build it for it, but I think you will be able to use it out of the box.
Okay. There's a question from Apple A12X. What features do you plan to bring from, one second. Do you plan to bring from Windows and the Mac client to the iOS app?
Well, we already import the display management. There will be soon the microphone, and I think this is the two features that are the most important to the user at the moment. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. I think yeah, this is the most feature for the moment.
All right. There's a very, very precise question from Zaref the First. Will there be any way to have consistent key presses and MMOs when using the iPad app?
Whoa.
Very specific, yeah. I don't if you can answer it.
Consistent key presses. What do you mean about that?
Yes, Zaref, if you can try to maybe give us a bit more detail on your question, he can try to answer it. But in the meantime, we will look at some other ones. So there's one from Dazel P. Schaff. Do you expect a shadow feature that is not possible on Android?
No, it's the opposite actually. I think Android is more open and you can do more features than iOS. So yeah, mainly I think everything that is on iOS will be on Android. But I think the reverse is not true. Maybe you will have some feature on Android and you won't be able to have them on iOS.
So there's a good question from Kusong. What inspired you to choose iOS development instead of the other OSs?
Well, at the very beginning, I don't know if it's about inspire, but at the very beginning I was more Android developer, but I had to do iOS development for just because it was my mission, and well, it's I liked it because at that moment 6 years ago, Android development were quite messy, and iOS development was a bit cleaner, and I started to like it more and more.
All right. So I'm assuming you have an iPhone.
Yeah, I have an iPhone.
There's a question that's come up quite a bit from the community. It's any news on multitasking with the iPad, with the 1/3 and 2/3 split view offset?
Yeah, I think we'll definitely develop this feature because it will be linked with the new widget things of Apple that they announced for iOS 14, and so I think to have we need to resize the view to have the correct resolution on the VM, and so we will definitely do that with the widget, and it will be also available for multitasking.
Cool. There's a question from Daily Versace. Are you happy with the feedback from the users and the number of users on iOS for Shadow? Do you get good feedback that helps?
Yeah, it's quite cool actually because I have many feedbacks on test flight, so I don't know if there is someone here that is using test flight and doing some feedbacks, but yeah, it's really helpful. I have I checked this morning, it's about 150 feedback on the last release I've done like 1 week ago, so it's really cool to read all these feedbacks and understand everything and be able to tell the product team, hey, many guys are asking for this feature, maybe we should consider it. And so yeah, it's quite cool.
Cool, yeah. So if you are using the test flight app, think about Thomas, think about feedback. He really appreciates it.
Yeah. And the number, actually, for the number of users, it's been great for the past months. It represents, I don't know, but almost like 10% of the shadow users, and it's growing and growing. And I think with the news of Apple and maybe the news of Android, it will be more and more.
So there's a question from the good old Darrison. Hi, Darrison. Can test flight users expect to be able to test mouse and keyboard features in beta iOS? So they're ready for launch?
Sorry, I didn't see didn't understand the beginning. When will it be available?
I think that's his question, Darrison, if you want to clarify that, but I think it's, he's asking if test flight users are going to be able to test the mouse and keyboard features.
Well, I think as soon as I can finish the development, because as I just said, I'm stuck with the first beta release. It's crashing the iPad, so I can't do much about it at the moment. But yeah, for the next release of iOS 14, for sure it will be ready in September, and maybe before on test flight.
All right, cool. So if you guys have any other final questions for Thomas, we'll be here for a little bit longer. So feel free to ask him anything about iOS, his vision of the product, what he likes to do on his weekends, whatever you think is suitable.
And yes, I'm working from home. I see. Yeah, I'm working. I'm in Paris in my apartment at the moment.
There's a question from Stonewall 6165, but no, that's not iOS related. So sorry. So there's one from Cruson. Did the removal of the shadow app from the store have any kind of positive or negative effects for you as a developer? I mean, maybe you were able to develop more features while the app was off the store.
Yeah, well, it was quite difficult because when Loic, my product manager, came to me and said, "Sorry, you can't do much, but the app is gone." I was like, "Oh, it's tough," but yeah. So I during this time I just rewrite many things about the applications to get it more stable, and yeah, it was quite cool because you don't have to support the current version because there are none, so you're quite free with the development. So yeah, it was really a nice moment for the development.
Yeah, I can imagine. And speaking of which, I mean, Daily Versace asks a good question on this point is, like, what do you think of the Apple Store, and do you have any kind of apprehension about the shadow app being removed again?
I don't think so, and well, they announced this year at the WWDC that they are like allowing companies to contest some guidelines, Apple guidelines for their rules on the App Store. So maybe we'll see in the next few months Stadia and GeForce Now and other guys that are pushing for getting their app on the App Store, maybe allowing us to have also our app back with the list of games and something like that.
Cool. There's actually a good question from Wako Maltz. He or she is saying he hopes that with all this iOS app, the other apps don't fall behind, like Windows and Android. But from what I understand, your work is not related to the Windows work. So just because you're working harder on the iOS app doesn't mean that other devs aren't working on the other apps. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. There is, I'm on the iOS part, but there is other guys on the on Android and other guys on Windows, Mac, Linux boxes, and everything else. So yeah, it's we don't stop all the other development to focus everyone on a new platform. So yeah, everything will continue.
Perfect. Yeah, different teams. So nothing will stop. Everyone's working still as hard on Android, Windows, etc. There's a question from Darrison. Will the iOS app ever get a shadow overlay?
Just like I think, just like in desktop, is I'm not sure about that, but we have an overlay, but it's like really minimalist, if I say. So I don't know if it's about the overlay that desktop apps have.
So I'm not seeing any other really interesting questions.
Yeah, for OS requirement, it's 11, iOS 11.
So there's another question about getting the current Mac client on ARM.
Yeah, well, I think it will be with they announced their chip that is converting, you know, Intel-based programs to their new ARM, and yeah, it will be out of the box for us. We won't need some more development. It's just about just building the application to be ready, but it doesn't really need more development.
And there's a question I think that you already answered. When is Magic Keyboard support coming for iPad?
Well, I think it will be like maybe in September or something like this when the iOS 14 will be out.
Okay.
Yes, Rosetta 2. This is it.
Yes, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll take one final question from you guys. That's about iOS or Apple for Thomas, and then he will be on his way. If you have any final questions, please send them through, and he'll be happy to answer it. If not, so I think I know the answer to that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, if you guys don't have any more questions, all I can say is thank you for joining us, and thank you to Thomas for taking the time to speak with us about iOS, WWDC, and the future of the Shadow app.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool to be here to explain my work, and yeah, that's really interesting things to do.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have you back soon. Maybe once iOS 14 comes out and the release happens, we can talk about that. We have more details.
Yeah. Sure. Well, thank you, Luke.
Yeah, thank you as well. And you guys, we will be back probably next week with either a shadow news or a shadow talk show. So do stay tuned. Have a good weekend. Stay safe out there. And we will see you next time. See you guys.
You